people are looking for work, they often mention that the most important thing to be able to do effectively is to network. But what is it? A lot of people seem very confused or daunted by it. So there's a number of different elements to it which we're going to talk about here. So really, to make it very simple, it's just connecting with people who may be able to help you. People often associate networking with attending events and shaking hands and being able to, describe what it is they do very quickly. But it's actually just making connections and maintaining connections with people who you probably already know who could help you. So it's really important to use your existing contacts, perhaps people you've worked with before, perhaps people that you may have interviewed for before, and family members and so on. But they all come into their own when you have a new sense of clarity about what it is you're looking for. So if you have a clear sense of, this is what I am, this is what I do, this is the area that I want to look for opportunities in, then you can go clearly to somebody and ask if they can help you find that kind of opportunity. So how do you actually use the power of your network? Well, we're going to go through a diagram here that actually shows or hopefully explains how it is that you can use the power of your network. So later in today's session we'll be talking about your brand, so how it is that you project yourself and get across those skills and qualities and experience. So for the moment, your brand is described by things like your CV, your 90-second pitch, your elevator pitch, pages that you have on social media, perhaps a portfolio of work if that's relevant to what it is that you do, if you're a graphic designer or an architect, for instance, and your cover letter. So all of these things are, if you like, public declarations of what it is that you do and how your brand and how your reputation is perceived, if you like, by potential employers and by other people. So that was the starting point. And if you like, skipping ahead to what the ultimate goal is, on the right hand side there we have basically the key person that you want to try and actually get connected with is a hiring manager. So someone who potentially wants you to work for them, needs your skill set. They may just be starting to realise that they know that they need somebody. So again, it's about trying to actually keep those connections alive and making sure that you can make contact effectively and easily as possible with a hiring manager. So as we've talked about before, roles may be advertised or not. They could be planned, they could be trainee roles, internship, volunteering opportunities, all those kinds of things. So the hiring manager, the person who you would ultimately be working for potentially, is the key person. And in association with that, you've got the HR department or talent management team within an organisation, if it's a bigger organisation, who tend to look after this kind of area. So they provide support to the hiring manager in terms of organising recruitment and selection and so on. So, but ultimately, the ultimate person who's making the decision is the hiring manager. So back to you and back to your brand. One thing to consider is, as we've mentioned before, in terms of options, perhaps you are thinking about being self-employed, or that's something you're already pursuing to some degree or have done before. So all of these elements in your brand are really important if you are self-employed. So essentially the same skill set applies to what you do if you are looking for an employment opportunity. So one route you can take is to go the agency route, and basically the HR or talent management team working for a particular organisation will pay the agency a fee to find someone to fill the role, and particularly at the higher end of the market, that's often the way these things work. So that's one way you can go. You can register with an agency or a couple of different agencies, and if you're very clear and specific about what it is that you want and you're ready to take up employment, then that makes it much easier for the recruitment consultant to do their job. But the recruitment consultant is working for the agency or the organisation that is hiring them. So it's really important to remember that that's usually their primary client, if you like. So they are, if you like, searching through all of the hundreds and thousands of applications that they receive every day, in fact, and that's really their challenge. So another route you can go is looking at job ads, whether it's online or on the newspapers or radio ads and so on. And again, they can be linked in with agency positions, and usually often are, or sometimes companies will advertise directly and will look for applicants to apply directly to them. But again, these are publicly advertised positions, and there's going to be a lot of applications for them. So another way that you can go is to actually tap into your existing contacts, because guess what, your existing contacts actually already have connections with lots of hiring managers, even though they don't probably think about it like that. So your existing network is your family, your friends, former colleagues, classmates perhaps, and people you've interviewed with previously, as I've mentioned. So it's really important that you tap into the power of your existing contacts, because your existing contacts can often have connections into hiring managers or into HR and talent management teams in companies. So, you know, this is where your existing network can connect you to other people who can connect you to hiring managers, or even directly connect you. And often companies operate a referral or recommendation scheme. So if they are recruiting, they will pay their existing employees to refer potential applicants, and they'll pay them a bonus, perhaps even of 1,000 or 2,000 euros, if they recommend somebody as a potential employee who subsequently is taken on. So it's, you know, it's a well-known and well-established way of working, and the most effective, because people tend to hire people they know or people who get recommended to them, because it's just much easier that way for them. Another way you can develop your network, perhaps if you feel that your network is a bit limited, is to choose events and become a member of groups that are in your area of interest. So if you think about what your hiring managers are going to be interested in, so if it's IT, or if it's HR, or if it's accountancy or finance, you know, what is their area of interest, and what are the events, networking events, what are the seminars, what are the professional associations and groups, either in the real world or online, that they will be members of, and how can you use those groups to connect with new contacts. So that's another way for you to develop new contacts in your network. And then lastly, the other main thing to mention is social media. So social media is a very powerful networking tool. It's really important that if this is something that you're comfortable with, and you know, perhaps if you're not, it's an area that is worth investigating. It's more relevant perhaps for certain industries than others. So for instance, if you're in the tech business or in the media and other professions, it's extremely relevant. But the chances are, for most people, at a minimum, LinkedIn has a lot of potential, so because it is the professional networking site. So it's really important to perhaps see if you can learn a little bit about LinkedIn, and we'll be talking a little bit about that later on. So how do you network effectively? So there's just a few tips to remember, because there is an etiquette associated with it. So you can ask someone that you know if they can introduce you to someone in a company that you would like to meet. So that may not be somebody who you necessarily want to give you a job, but maybe you want to do a bit of research, find out what it's like to work for that company, any other kind of useful information that is part of your research in deciding if this is a company that you would like to be employed by. It's a good idea to meet people informally where possible. So if you can ask someone, look, would it be possible to meet you for 20 minutes for a cup of coffee, just to get your advice or get your guidance? It is always a good thing to ask, and most people are quite happy to offer advice or to give some guidance. It's important that you keep, you know, even if you've been unemployed for some time and you're finding things difficult, it's important to remember the message that you convey through your attitude. So that's worth thinking about. And as I've said, you know, you don't necessarily want to go looking for a job, because that really puts them on the spot. You really want to aim to meet people and learn something new. So if you're meeting them and there's no particular agenda in mind other than to learn something new. You just don't know what opportunities might come up either in that discussion or potentially as a result of it. So if you can offer them suggestions or advice, or perhaps even, you know, suggest useful contacts to them in return, that can be really valuable to them because they get something in return for giving their time too. Obviously asking questions about, you know, what they think and what they think is important, and trends in the industry and so on, not just talking about yourself. Even asking things like, you know, so how did you get into this role? So there may be, you may have other ideas, but again, you know, there is a I suppose an etiquette about networking and not putting people on the spot or having them feel under pressure, but still being confident enough to ask, because all you can do is ask. The worst thing that they can say is no if they don't have time to meet you.